Okay, and with that, it is 3 o'clock Central Time, the time that matters. Um, so we're going to go ahead and take that East Coast. Mountain Time, you're cool. So welcome. I'm Andrew. I don't know if I've met all of you before. Nick and I are spearheading our Elastic testing. Yeah,
Well,
Pacific
we're
Time, not even a mention.
we're coordinating it. The libraries that have come on board, you guys are spearheading it.
I should say, y'all are spearheading the testing part, and we're endlessly thankful. We're spearheading the turning things on.
Yeah.
This meeting is being recorded, so be aware that you're being recorded, and ultimately this will go up on our blog. Um, that does include everything you say and type and faces you make into the camera. I'm going to be pretty free and loose with the muting of people, so please don't take it personally if you're perhaps like typing very loudly and I mute you. It happens. But yeah, you do all, unlike our usual upgrade webinars, you all have the ability to speak here. So when we get into more direct questions, feel free to ask those verbally or via the chat, whatever works best for you. But we have a little spiel before we get into just free open question time about the general idea of how this is all working as we get folks moved over to Elastic for testing. I'm going to let Nick do a lot of that. Hold on. I'm getting a private message here. Oh, somebody's having trouble hearing me. Am I breaking up for folks generally? Sorry, Deb. That might just be you. So again, this is being recorded. If you're having audio trouble, hopefully the recording will be better for you. So, Nick, do you want to start? Go for it.
Sure. I mean, usually I give my spiel in response to a question, so I at least have like some sort of target at the end. So if I wander, forgive me. Um, but generally, we are asking everyone to be Elastic testers because we feel the code for Elasticsearch is at the point where it does what you want, meaning you type in a search, you get the books that you want. Um, that being said, there are moving pieces here that we really need a lot of help in figuring out. Um, I mean, assuming at this point everyone knows what Elasticsearch is, and I don't need to go over that. Beyond that, it's a new search engine for Koha. Um, but possibly some of the reasons why we're leaving Zebra to go to ES would be helpful. Um, Zebra is a great search engine. Zebra is designed for Mark. It is designed just for libraries to search their books. And so in large part, Zebra is actually pretty good. It's relatively fast. It's relatively relevant. And it works. For most of you out there, you type into what you want a Zebra, and you get back a pretty good set of books. The problems with Zebra are when it doesn't work. When it doesn't work, you like to ask why, and that's a really good question. Why are these search results this way? Why is this more relevant than the other one? Why doesn't this record return, or why didn't this record get indexed? But the answers to all of those questions with Zebra are, I don't know. Zebra is a black box. The documentation is confusing at best and non-existent in most places. So if you ask me a question about Zebra, I generally can't tell you. The relevancy ranking, I don't know how it works. I know sort of the basic theory on which it's based, but beyond that, there's nothing we can do. The great thing about Elastic is that if you ask me any of these questions about Elastic, I will be able to give you an answer. It may start at, I don't know, because we're pretty new to Elastic, but there's always an answer in there somewhere. And the Elastic documentation is great. While it isn't built for libraries, that's actually a plus for us because it is used by a lot more people. The user base is broad and huge. If we ask a Zebra question, we generally end up talking to the Koha community. If we need to ask an Elasticsearch question, we have a broader community who are doing different things with it. And one of the things we know about libraries is that you guys like to do different things. We develop a tool for Koha, we put it out there, and then it's used in different ways than we expected. So with Elasticsearch, that's actually a really great thing. Other benefits, it is configurable. If you get results and you say, why is this record more relevant than the other? I can give you a pretty good answer and you can change it. One of the most exciting things is that with Elastic, you can immediately, with no reindexing, no doing anything else, change the rating relevancy weighting for any of your records. And again, with configurability, you can select the mappings. What this means is that you can define the search fields that you're going to have available to you, and you can define which particular MARC fields are indexed into those search fields. And additionally, you can do a pretty good job of saying how you want them indexed into those fields. At this point, I feel like I'm going to get too technical and keep going down this road if I keep talking. So I'm going to kind of pause and see if we have any questions right now. And you can use the chat if you want to get our attention.
And feel free to key smash into the chat just so we know to wait for you to type something longer. Just because I think that'll be fun to see in a chat transcript later.
But I'll continue talking for one more thing. So the mappings are one of the main things that we're trying to uncover in the testings. We have a fairly solid base for bibliographic mappings right now. But in terms of authority mapping, we definitely know we need some work. And even for the bibliographic mappings, every time we bring in a new library, one of the first things we find are fields that you have relied upon searching for a long time that may not be available anymore. So having a list of those ahead of time is really helpful.
And that part of the point of this call was to give you all an idea of, if you're going to be coming on as an Elastic tester in some number of months, what should you do to prepare for that? And that's really the big thing, is do be thinking at this time about what parts of your MARC records you absolutely need indexed, any particular oddities of places where you're putting information that isn't indexed now, or have we ever set up a custom index for you in Zebra? And then thinking about how you would want that stuff weighted. Christopher asked a question. Does Elasticsearch have any way to show you how it comes to a conclusion in a search?
It does, in the sense that I can retrieve the results directly from Elasticsearch. I can take the query that you put into Koha, figure out what you have sent to Zebra, apply it directly to Elastic, and get back the full result set, which will show me the weightings that it is applying to all of the records. And things like that. It also has some, I'm trying to remember what it's called, but there's an endpoint that you can hit which will kind of explain some of the searching and some of the indexing outcomes to you and how it got there. If you want more information about that, I suggest that you watch the videos from KohaCon in Ireland. We had an Elastic expert come in who does a much better job than I will ever be able to do of explaining Elasticsearch and how the indexing and searching works in a really clear way. It's possible that there could, Christopher also asked, will there ever be a diagnostic tool in the admin tools? Exposing the relevancy ranking would be a fairly trivial development because it's, once we get search results, it's returned there, but it would be a development. And over the course of the testing and doing these things, we're going to uncover a lot of things in Elasticsearch that my answer to you is going to be, yes, Elasticsearch can do that, but Koha doesn't yet. And we are still planning that there will need to be some developments and enhancements on Elasticsearch. Heather asks, will search prefixes be the same? Call number, phrase, TI, first and subfield, all of that. The index part of that, yes. So call number, colon, TI, colon, all of that will work. Phrase is generally now used like Google. You put quotes around it, you get a phrase search. First, in subfield, I don't know that we have implemented that. Elasticsearch does have the idea of prefix searching, so we can do those things. I don't know that syntax off the top of my head or if it works in the current query. For anyone who is curious, for all of our biblio queries, we're using the query string query, which you can look up the Elastic documentation. We're currently on version 5.6. We'll go to 6 in Koha 1911. But if you look at the documentation from Elasticsearch, it will show you, it relates directly to what we're passing over.
And I would say that the sort of thing that Heather put in chat there of sort of non-standard CCL searches that she does regularly, that's great stuff to know as you head into Elastic, because then you can tell us, as soon as we say, okay, your date's coming up, let's get ready, you can say, okay, here's my list of weird searches I do regularly. Let's make sure those work. And we can get on that. That's way better than we get you on Elastic and a month later you say, hey, here's this weird search I do that I haven't mentioned before. I can't promise it will work out of the box, but we will make it work, and the sooner we get started on that, the better.
So I think one of the most URLs that you built pre-Elastic will continue to work. Some of them will need a slight syntax change. So if you have a bunch of pre-built URLs that you are providing to your users, please provide them to us before you go to Elastic. Just to rewind a little bit of information for everyone about how this process works. About a month before, very organized, Andrew. About a month before your go live date with Elastic, we're going to open a ticket with you to kind of talk about these things. And that's where we're going to want you to give a lot of this information, like, are there weird CCL searches that you're doing? Do you have pre-built search links that you need to maintain after the search? And more things like that. Generally, what we're going to ask for when we get to that month out is, what fields are really important for you to have searchable. In Zebra, every field in the record is searchable. In ES, it is not that way out of the box. Only the fields that you have specified as being indexed are searchable, which actually sort of helps with the relevancy, but it hurts when you expect to be able to search a weird local notes field that maybe wasn't indexed specifically before. We'll need to have that specifically indexed. The other thing that we will ask you to tell us are the things that you like about Zebra, the things that are working really well, the things that you rely on. That's those pre-built searches, but it's also just kind of your day-to-day things that you might be doing with Zebra that you're very concerned about, that are critical to your workflow. And just the parts of Zebra that you like, to make sure that they also function in Elastic. Contrary to that, we also want the list of things that you do not like about Zebra. What are the things that you're switching for? What are you hoping to see fixed? What are you hoping to see improved? So that we can start to see, are we there yet, or do we need to work on those things? Why don't you add something, Andrew?
I wanted to just show you all a bit of what the interface for all of this works, because Elastic is adding a whole bunch of customizability. A lot of that is going to live actually in the staff client where you can see it and touch it. Let me pull that page up and share my screen. Oh, hold on. I updated my Mac last night and it's mad at me. 1 second. I have to give Zoom permission to look at my screen, which I thought I had already done. Okay, so you stop. You. Oh, no. It's going to make me quit Zoom and come back. That's no bueno.
Are you just going to show the search engine configuration?
Yeah.
I can
do you want to just hold up? And I was going to show that page on my test site, just because that's not configured at all. So it will kind of show what that looks like.
Okay. Are you on test?
Staff-andrew.test. While you do that, Bob from Click asked, we've recently gotten on Elastic and there are some searches that are giving unexpected relevancy results. I've messed with the weightings, but it hasn't significantly changed things. Should I just put in tickets with those examples? I would say, yeah. As with anything else in Koha, feel free to play with it as much as you want to play with it. But, Nick, you can log in with Andrew.
Oh,
highly secure.
Don't tell anyone.
Okay, watch out, because I think somebody in the audience does want to hack our sites from their questions in our last upgrade webinar, Andrew. Maybe.
Their first name might rhyme with Christopher.
My test site is such a hot mess. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, but Bob, feel free to play with your weightings and try to address it on your end, but do also feel free to just put in tickets.
Yeah. And know that, like, right now I'm just dying to dig into that, but we're not going to do that. I really want to.
So, yeah, this is the customization page. This lives within just administration. As soon as there's a system preference that asks whether you're using Elastic or Zebra. Once that gets switched to Elastic, then this search engine configuration page becomes available. You could all right now go into your system preferences and change that search engine to Elastic, and it would break everything. Because there is setup that needs to happen on your server before you do that.
It would break searching and anything that relies on it. You could still check out books.
Yeah, I shouldn't say everything.
I'm still not encouraging you. I don't
a lot of things. So don't do that. But once we've done the setup that needs to happen, then we'll switch you to Elastic, and this page will show up. So this shows us, the page that Nick's on right now is the weighting page, and that gives us your list of indexes and says, when this shows up in a search result, give it this much relevancy weight. Blank basically means it's rated at 1, and if we give it a higher number, it's got more weight, which means those results push higher in the results. We've settled on a pretty standard list of fields here to weight that has worked fairly well. I think that's probably why Nick is so interested to see Bob's exceptions, because that's part of the point of what we're doing here, just trying to figure out sort of the best weighting.
Yeah.
But yeah, this can be totally different for different libraries. We're trying to figure out just sort of a standard to put everybody on that will be good enough, because out of the box, as you can see, it's utterly unweighted.
And just to go through it real quick, you have the name. This is the search field that actually exists in the index that you are going to be searching. If you're using CCL syntax, this is what you will type. Barcode : or barcode equals, and then your barcode. On this page, the label is not used. It's right now just defaults to being the same for the name and the label. We should leave it that way. We will probably utilize it in the future. It offers possibilities, but currently ignore it. Type is not so important, except for the things that are preset. You probably don't want to change. Dates being set to dates. But at the moment, if we're adding a field, type is not crucial. And weight, like Andrew said, is the relevancy. Then from this page, so you have your search field names. They're all available to you in the what are actually the mapping sections. So this is where you map that author is mapped to 100A, 110A, 111A, 245C. All of that.
So right now in Koha, if you go to the manual and find the page for searching, there's a great big table of mark to index mappings that is of questionable accuracy. I know there are some things that are not in there, some things that have changed. So when you move to to Elastic, that will all actually live in Koha here and will be, accurate as of right now, continuously accurate.
And currently, no, you cannot shorten the labels to change the typing. They're not used for that purpose. It would be nice, but most of the shortened labels, like TI for title, that is preserved. We tried not to eliminate any of the shortcuts that already existed.
Yeah, so in Zebra right now, there are the official index names, and then there is just sort of built into Koha a bunch of shortcuts like that, where title is not called TI. There's just a built-in shortcut for it, and those shortcuts are still around.
So for each mapping as well, you have a couple things here. You have sortable. Anything but 0 means that it is sortable at this point. Making new fields sortable does not add them to the sorting options in your sorting dropdown yet. That is a future goal which we're looking towards. So the goal here is basically, if it is, don't mark something as unsortable if you're supposed to be able to sort by it. That would break things.
And sortable there is for like advanced search, when you say, put this in acquisition date order.
Yeah.
That's the sort in sortable there.
Yeah. Facetable is going to describe whether or not this field is included in the facets. It looks like what we've actually done at this point, which I'm surprised about, is the fields that are not included in the facets ever are not even offered to be facetable. But you could say that for a subject, well, actually, let's go back to author, because that was a good example. Sorry to make anyone seasick. So for author, you see we have 100A, 110A, 111A. They're all yes for facetable. Author 245C is not facetable, because that's generally the form that's found on the item. So it's not going to match your authorized form. So you would end up with having two different facets for one author from one record, and we don't really want that. So that is where facetable is useful. If you're adding mappings to an existing facet, decide whether or not it should be facetable. And the last one is suggestible, which does nothing.
And facetable and suggestible are both areas that get into something Nick said earlier about Elastic is giving us some new features right now, and then a whole bunch of room to grow new features that we just wouldn't be able to do in Zebra at all. So things like making custom facets, Zebra can't do that, Elastic can't do that, but Elastic could learn to do that. And if Nick weren't being pulled away, he would correct me to say, Elastic can do that. Koha can't do that with Elastic yet. Christopher, yeah, you gotta know some mark. I'd be interested to see the development that just makes it possible to scrap mark entirely and make some totally different record format. But yeah, you're gonna map some stuff back to mark. This table here of mark mapping, the default version that's just when you install a new Koha is okay. It covers most of the things you will need. I think just about every partner we've brought to Elastic has found something that they want to add to this mapping. That's a pretty easy process. It is not yet to the point where you can just do it yourself here. It is still a thing that you need to ask us to change. We need to make that change on your configuration and then re-index you. That will change ultimately, where it'll be more something you can just change from here. But yeah, think about what you need out of your mark records. And that's just, it's a new question. And so I think it's caught most of our partners a little bit off guard just because they haven't really had the option to add stuff very easily. Bob asked about the options today for customizing facets. Right now, your options are you can change the order they appear in on that sidebar, and you can make different facets appear or disappear. I should say, out of that list, you can say, I don't want an item type facet, and then you'll never see it. But you don't have an option yet to add new facets.
But we look forward to that in the future.
And just as Nick moves those facets around in order with the utterly unhinted at interface, this would be another thing that I would love for you all as testers to keep an eye on. Places where this could be more clear. because I see nothing in that to tell me that I can drag and drop those, but apparently you can.
So just to, Bob, file a ticket for your issue, and I will look at that as soon as possible. For Heather, you can add to this from the existing indexes. So if you have already something, if something is defined as a search field already, then yes, you can add to that search field more fields. You cannot yet add a new search field from the staff client interface. However, you can ask us to do so, and we will do so on the back end. And we actually, I think Andrew may have said this, but it bears repeating. When we open the ticket a month before you're ready to go live, we will also open a document, a Google Sheet, for you to add or change mappings. That's where we ask you to make the changes, then we'll make them on the back end. This whole interface is stored in the database, but there's this reset mappings button, which will reload everything from a file on the server. Bywater maintains that file, and that's why we ask you to make the changes through the Google Doc. Then we can make them to the file, and that way, in case of any backups or anything we need to do, we have everything preserved in a file. So if you've made a lot of custom changes, we want to have them in the Google Drive and in the file so that we're just really safe in preserving those. Otherwise, if you make a bunch of changes and save them and then later hit reset mappings, you will lose them, and that would be bad.
Christopher made a joke about make Bywater work for you, but like really, that's the thing I keep repeating to people when they ask me, well, if I'm an Elastic tester, what do I need to do? And it's tell us when you have problems and make us fix them.
Yeah.
Which is not a huge ask, but is very important. Please don't be an Elastic tester who just gets frustrated with Elastic for 3 months and then doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
Because we can't do anything with that. To talk about schedule a little bit, I know I sent you all dates on which we're going to bring you to Elastic. Right now, we're bringing on one library every 2 weeks, which has been a good pace so far for being able to kind of keep an eye on everybody. And that's really the big question here. We know that Elastic works well. So far, of the libraries we have switched over to Elastic, I don't believe any of them have had any patron feedback on it at all. So that's a point in its favor. No patrons are really even noticing a problem, and it's working pretty well. The big question for us is, how sustainable is it? How many things are going to get shaken out as we bring more libraries on? Because also every new partner we've brought on with Elastic has found something that's pretty important to them that needs addressing pretty immediately. You all use Koha in very different ways. Christopher asked how many libraries we're adding. I don't have a count immediately. I think it's somewhere around 30. Take the number of weeks between October 1st and July 1st, divide it by 2, and then add some more in because there were some more. I can find that number rather than being flipped.
Yeah. And yeah, at least for now, we're going to continue with the schedule. We do, this is a lead up to figuring out how to get a large number of libraries on Elastic. There are still some internal questions in terms of architecture and scaling that we are working on. That's part of the reason for bringing everybody up in this kind of slow pace, is to see how things change as we get more and more libraries. So we will be having discussions about when we're going to offer this much more broadly. But for now, you guys are our special snowflakes who we love and thank for taking on this responsibility. No, Christopher asked, have there been any hiccups with updates using ES? No, so far, ES and the update process are pretty separate. The hiccup is identifying if we have somebody who is just getting updated and using ES, making sure that any issue, identifying where the issue came from. And largely, search problem or search issues are related to ES. Everything else is not. And even within ES, there have not been any big changes in the versions that we've been on. 1911, there are some more significant changes to how we do some of the things in Elasticsearch. So we expect to see a little bit broader difference there.
Looks like 25 partners. Does that sound right? Yeah. We have 25 people scheduled right now to go over to Elastic. And ideally, by the time we've made it through those 25, we have a date figured out for like wholesale move over. But that really depends how it goes. Keep repeating to people that like we will have an announcement about this as soon as we're able to have an announcement. We have no secret dates.
And this is within the community too. We are still, I think, fairly on point or ahead of where everyone else is. I know Biblib has brought up several customers in production using Elasticsearch, I think mainly academics because that's kind of their focus. We're trying to make sure that we do have a good mix here of academics, publics, consortium, and different types of libraries so that we can kind of meet all of the needs of our partners.
Oh, and we haven't explicitly said, and it's worth saying, once we move you to Elastic, I mentioned that there is a system preference that says, do I use Elastic or do I use Zebra? For now, Koha still needs Zebra for Z3950. So Zebra is going to continue to run in your Koha. It's going to continue to be updated. And were things to go very, very badly, you could always go back to that system preference and just switch yourself back to Zebra. We ask that you not do that lightly. For one thing, just because the point here is to test Elastic and make Elastic work. But also, were you to switch yourself back to Zebra, there's a little bit of work we need to do then to get you back to Elastic. So you have an escape hatch should you need it, but no one has used it yet. And that's good. We're very happy that everyone so far has been happy to report their issues and have us figure them out. Victoria asked, how many indexes can Elasticsearch use? I'm looking at Nick, because as far as I know, I don't think there's a limit.
So I'm going to make one slight point here, which is it's probably better to refer to them as search fields now. And that's just more because the concept of indexes in Elastic refers to kind of the overall search set. So we have an index for biblios and an index for authorities, and then within each of those indexes, we have a bunch of fields that we can search. That's new terminology. I didn't expect any of you to know that, Victoria. I will try to talk about it that way. The number of fields is not limited as far as I know. There probably is a setting in Elasticsearch somewhere that will have some sort of limit to that. But if there is, it's probably pretty large and we haven't hit it yet. So if you're thinking about indexing, let's say every single MARC field, then we might want to look into that. If you're going to have each field in its own search field. But otherwise, I think you're safe to add as many as you want.
Heather asked, when will Elasticsearch work for Z3950? Is that currently in development? I know there is a bug filed for that. I'm not sure if it's getting actively coded at this point, but that is the long-term goal, is to get Koha to a point where we don't need to use Zebra at all.
It was pushed to master about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
So it will be in 1911. It may have been more than 3 weeks ago. But it is... Yes, it essentially sits in front of Elasticsearch, catches it, acts as a Z3950 server, catches it, transfers the request to an Elasticsearch search, searches your catalog, returns the results as if it was Zebra. or Z39. So yes, we do have that, and everyone will get it in the future.
And so related to that right now, the Mark Edit integration is through Z3950. So as of 1905, that's still just using Zebra, so there's no change there, and therefore no impact.
The getting records out of Koha into Mark Edit relies on Z3950. Pushing them into Koha actually uses the Koha Service API, which is not related to Zebra at all. So pushing records in is unaffected by this change.
I'm curious about what mysterious things Heather is doing with Z3950 that Elastic is going to change. We'll see.
So we looked at, just to mention too, we looked at the bibliographic records. We didn't look at the authority mappings. The authority mappings are not done. This relates to the matcher and the matching and connecting all of your authority records to Biblios. We have realized that we don't have quite enough fields defined here yet. So that is one of the things that we are working on, and one of the things that as testers we're going to ask for help with, searching authorities and connecting them. So just putting that out there, that this is a good place if you're really concerned about authorities to go ahead and look into this. If you are really curious, I will bring it up on a different window and then pop it up over here so that you don't have to go through everything, but you can do some things. So I'll put this link in the chat, which I know everybody wants to go and look at the web interface for Git. But if you want to, you can actually see the mappings, the YAML file. This is what we update and customize for your sites. It lists all of the authority headings and what fields are indexed into them. So if you are not on Elastic yet and want to play with this and really want to delve into it, look into it, you can go here and look at them.
You can also spin up a sandbox on our BWS sandbox page. These are all ready to use Elastic. If you create a sandbox and flip the system preference, that will put you in Elastic.
They won't let you re-index in Elastic yet, but that's something that we are working on. But if you're really desperate, just you can ask me, and I can do some secret backdoor things to re-index Elastic or do other things.
Right. Yeah. As Micah says, she's working with her authority mappings right now. Yay, Micah. Micah was our very first Elastic tester, so.
Yeah. And even though I assured her many times that she could turn Zebra back on, and I offered it to her many times, she said, no, I'm going to stick with it. She was very dedicated, and we got things working well.
So I think that's pretty much all we have to tell you all about. What other questions do you have for us? What other things are you concerned about or curious about as we move into this? Oh, thank you. I totally missed Eric's question.
Yeah.
Facets work kind of oddly, if I remember right. Like you only see facets for values visible on the page of results that you're viewing. That changed. Nick's very excited about it. In Elastic, so right now in Zebra, you run a search and you get facets from the first, by default, it's just the first 20 results. You can up that, but you can't at any point just say, build my facets from everything. Elastic has changed that. Elastic builds your facets based on your whole search results pile. Yes.
Which does remind me of one small thing. With Zebra, you can get as many results as you want. If you search for everything, you can start, browsing down to page 50, 60, 100 of your result set. Elasticsearch is only going to give you the first 10,000 results. After that, we ask that you narrow your search.
But on the other hand, that also means that in Zebra, if you have a very large collection, it is possible to do a search for something like that fails because it returns more search results than Zebra can think about. And Elastic will never do that. It will only give you 10,000 results. But I'm here. If the thing you want isn't in your first 10,000 search results, I would suggest perhaps a new search query.
So it will still, Christopher, you will still, when you get your facets, you'll still get 10 listed by default, but you can hit show more and expand it to see all of them. So it's not going to suddenly fill your screen with 400 different facets.
And then, Nick, was that Elastic or just 1905 that changed it so when you say show more, it doesn't do the search over again? That was
it's 1905. It's for Zebra as well, I believe.
Victoria asked if Elasticsearch is left justified. By that, do you mean when you put in a search, it will look for that at the start of the string first? So like if you're looking for a title, it will start from the beginning of the title. It is not by default. It's still doing a keyword search. So you put in a word for title and it looks for that word anywhere in the title. But you do have the option to do a starts with search. The default is still just keyword.
And if you want to get really involved in your searching, there are a few wildcard characters and other characters that you can give that will do some things there. I'm going to put this into the chat. The other thing that you can do, which is a very limited, exciting thing, is you can use regular expressions. So you can actually search using regex if you want to. That would allow you to do a begins with search for things, Victoria, but it's regex, so beware.
But I mean, right now in Zebra, we can use CCL to say title starts with. Do we have that something along those same lines in Elastic?
I'm trying to see, because I know like star at the end is a wild card. I'm trying to think if there's an anchor, but I don't know that there is, at least not in the query string syntax. But there are cool things that I'm seeing on this page that I have not tried. Title starts with, but skipping stop words is a lot more useful, yeah. I don't actually know if we can specify it starts with in the syntax outside of regex.
Can a regex search be put into like the drop-down search options as you can with any other, like with a CCL?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Can we make a search drop-down option on the advanced search page that would be basically title starts with and use regex to make that happen?
I don't believe so. Not from the way that we parse that input field. I don't think we can do that. So title starts with. But this is starts with seems to be fairly important to a large number of you. So that's going to be something that I'm going to add to my list of things that I need to investigate.
And that's why we've invited you all to be testers, to tell us the things that we have not thought about as important. The title starts with, I don't think you need that.
Yeah, who uses that? Come on.
Record matching rules. I don't think so. But This is the part in every Zoom meeting where we wait a little bit just in case someone is halfway through typing a very long, complicated question.
No, Aspen Discovery indexes their own records into Solr. So he uses a direct ODBC connection to your database to build his search results. I shouldn't say his, I should say our. The search results even. So Aspen Discovery will not be affected by Elasticsearch. I have poked him to change from using Solr to using Elasticsearch because we're working on setting up Elasticsearch. However, I think he doesn't want to wholesale change his search engine because, as we've discovered, that's kind of a big deal and takes some time.
Christopher, you mean is Solr better or worse than Elastic?
No. Solr and Elastic are both based on Apache Lucene. They are very similar. They just have slightly different models of how you interact with them on the top. But in terms of actual searching, they're probably comparable. Some of the things that I showed you in the configuration where I said, hey, just ignore that, we haven't implemented it yet, that's because they are left over from when Koha was investigating Solr as a search engine. So a lot of the implementation of Elastic built off of the code that was written for Solr. Why didn't we go with Solr, you may ask? There's not actually a real reason behind it. It just didn't get momentum. There was not someone out there championing it hard enough to get it moving forward, as we have done with Elasticsearch. And I think part of that was like Solr was developed and ready, and it never made it forward. And so we're really trying to push Elastic so that we do make it forward, because a lot of you have been hearing about it for a long time.
Okay. Well, that seems like we're petering out here. So let me say again, this meeting has been recorded. We're going to put this recording up on our blog. We have answered all of the questions that have been in chat. So those are in the video. If you all get off this call and immediately think of something you should have asked, do feel free to email me. That's Andrew@Bywater Solutions. We'll get you an answer through email, and then also put that on the blog along with this video to have some place where people can go back and look at this. Otherwise, as we move along through the year, as Nick said, I'll be in touch with all of you about a month before the date I gave you for changeover to open up a ticket and start that process of getting a little more specific. And again, thank you all for testing, and thanks in advance for all the fine things